Hello, my name is Manufara Flower, and today I'm going to talk about um, making your fantasy a reality and shifting your idea on what is achievable. I believe that fulfilling cravings in the way of clothing can affect your confidence in yourself and your ability to believe that you can achieve success and happiness. I assure you that this concept is in no way intended to be materialistic. It's about finding some way to make your fantasies come true in one small area like clothing. So, I'm definitely one of those people who lives and breathes fashion, but not everyone is, and this technique can still work for anybody of any type that don't necessarily prioritize their fashion. It's really just more about using a form of personal creative expression to experiment with creating an out-of-routine fantasy of reality in some form. So making that shift of this was a dream or a fantasy, something that you kind of went to feel happy, and integrating it into your life in one form, and then allowing that process to affect your idea on what you can bring into your reality, and that you can actually use that technique in all different ways. And it shows you that fantasies are not just fantasies; that you can really make them a reality in some form. So, breaking free from conformity and wearing something that represents your fantasy is directly related to one's happiness and self-confidence. A lot of people will say if you're dressed well and you've got a trendy outfit, or it's flattering, that you're going to be more confident. But it's not just about the trend or the well put together outfit. It's about it representing something to you, and you're fulfilling a craving in some form, because right there that brings you happiness, and you're integrating an outfit or an item that represents a fantasy and that you went to feel happy. So, an example of something. I mean, this exercise can really be done in any way or form, and any degree. You can just do the simplest little thing. It doesn't have to be loud and obnoxious, but you can also do like something crazy, like Lady Gaga style, like something really loud, and it's really up to you. And one example of something that can really, I think it relates to a lot of women, especially in more business positions, more male-dominant positions, um, where you don't really necessarily show off your sexiness and your woman power often, because you feel like you kind of have to be more like a man in a male-dominated area, and then if you do that, you'll be degraded. It'll be degrading or whatever, but or not, or maybe they're busy and you don't really have time to feel sexy or whatever. But one thing that, if you're feeling that and you really want to feel more romantic and more sexy, doing something like wearing a sexy undergarment, like some lacy panties or a garter or a slip underneath your dress, specifically knowing that no one else is going to see it, and that you're wearing it only for yourself, and that no one else knows that it's there. It's it's doing something so small and so subtle that no one else even knows about, but it's going to give you so much more confidence, because you're fulfilling a craving and you're being empowered by shifting your fantasy into reality. And taking that small amount of time, small amount of focus to do something like that, it really does make a difference. When I was working full time at Zara, actually, you wear a uniform, so a lot of times it was kind of frustrating, because I didn't really take the time, because I was constantly working, so I didn't really take the time to, pick out a really nice outfit that really made me feel good and happy with what I was wearing, because I was just walking 5 minutes to work and going to put on a uniform for 9 hours. So it can be tricky finding motivation and inspiration to do something like that when you feel like it's not going to make a big difference and it's kind of just a waste of time. But it really does, because the few days where I would take a moment to really process and wear something that was inspiring to me and something that made me feel good about what I was wearing, even though it was only for like 10 minutes, 5 minutes there, 5 minutes back walking, it changed my entire feeling about the day. It really did. It really did make me feel happier about the day. So, yeah, it really does. It proves in a small way that you can translate your dreams into reality. And it may not be noticeable at first, but eventually, over time, you will start to see that that shift can affect other areas, other things that you may not think are achievable to you. And the fact that you have achieved something that was a dream that wasn't very likely, or you just didn't think that you would do something like that, in the smallest way shows that it is possible. So back to what I was saying about doing it in a small way or a big way, it's really up to your comfort zone. And I'm not saying not to push past your comfort zone, but I am saying to find a balance where you are pushing through and making your fantasy reality and wearing something that you feel inspired by, but not being distracted by what other people may be thinking about it, because that's really important. Because if you're making that shift and wearing something that represents a dream and a fantasy to you, but all you can think about is what other people may be thinking, or, oh, why is she so overdressed, things like that, or, oh, why is she wearing that, she normally doesn't wear that, or he doesn't normally wear that, that will distract you from what it is you're doing and the benefits that you get from doing it. So you need to find a balance where you are pushing it and you are creating that fantasy with your clothing or your hair or your makeup without going to a point where it's going to make you feel distracted by other people's thoughts. And those things it happens to everyone. I definitely experienced that a lot throughout high school, but eventually I got to a point where I enjoyed the up and down looks and the scowls because it made me proud to be different, and it actually made me want to push further and further because it was something that made me happy and confused other people, and I kind of like to surprise people. So I definitely got to a point where I was able to push past whatever people were thinking, but I'm not saying it didn't ever affect me, because it definitely did. And it's important to recognize that and to find a way for you to, kind of compromise with it. Because there's really no point if you're going to just push it all the way out there, but then be distracted about what other people are thinking. So just slowly working up towards it and finding a way to balance in between the two. So finding motivation and inspiration to be dressing differently or be dressing a way that inspires you or a way that represents your dreams and your fantasies can be difficult, especially if you're not really surrounded by a lot of inspiration when it comes to fashion. I live in Vancouver, and it can be very difficult to find motivation and inspiration because, everybody in Vancouver, the fashionable people wear, not always, this is a very generalization, but wearing Lululemons with Uggs and a green parka is kind of like the norm and considered quite fashionable, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's more just kind of generic for me, and really lacks inspiration, I feel, and it can be difficult if you're constantly surrounded by that kind of feeling, and it creates this environment that makes you feel awkward when you are approaching those inspirational outfits and wearing heels and a dress, even though it's not necessarily super fancy. If I were to wear casual heels with a dress and go outside, I used to feel overdressed because everyone was dressed so differently, and it's just not the norm. So, when someone is dressed that way, it's kind of shocking, and people are like, what? Kind of confused. And so it can definitely be difficult finding motivation and inspiration if you're surrounded by not what you're trying to go for. So what I do um, is basically there's two different ways of that I work towards finding motivation and inspiration. And one of those things I call the fashion storm. So it's basically a fashion brainstorm. And I mean, you can do a big collage on your wall or get a scrapbook, but it is good to have it kind of out there so that you see it even when you're not specifically intending to see it. So like a poster board collage or something like that is really good to have. And just filling it with any kind of inspirational images and colors and prints. And it doesn't necessarily all have to be about fashion. It can be really anything to do with what you're surrounding yourself with. So home decor, furniture, wallpaper, changing your wallpaper, something like that actually is a big one too that can also affect this. So just filling it with images that inspire you and motivate you and are representing that place that you go when you're trying to escape is bringing that into your everyday life, and it allows you to feel not like you're escaping to find happiness. So if you're integrating that escape place into your daily life, then eventually you'll find ways to integrate other things from your fantasy and your dreams into your daily life. So my second one is bringing yourself a vibe. So I recently went to New York, and in New York, I mean, it definitely has a vibe, and that vibe is very inspiring in any form, because everyone is kind of there for the same reason or in the same essence. Even though, you know, everyone's doing so many different things, you're still there in the same essence a lot. And there's just this vibe that you can really do anything and be accepted, and there be a platform for it. So when I came back, it was really tricky because all the time I, you know, would get lazy and kind of not express myself through my clothing, and I would wear sweatpants to go grab a coffee. And I mean, that's not really a big deal, but to me, it's like hiding myself, and it does make a big difference. And for me, so and I'd always say, oh, well, if I was in New York, I'd be, you know, constantly creating these amazing outfits and doing more art and being more artistic and creating so many more things that I want to be creating, or doing so many more things that I want to be doing, like just taking a stroll down, you know, through the harbor or anything like that. I would be doing that so much more if I was in a place like New York. But then I kind of started to think, well, stop trying to be somewhere else and just be here. So I decided to kind of bring that vibe and that feeling that I felt there to myself, and do things that I would be doing if I was there. So in your own way, finding a vibe or a place that maybe you've been before, or maybe you just want to be, and just integrating that feeling and that vibe into your daily life, and kind of almost in the back of your head pretend that you're there in a sense, so that you are taking actions as if you were in that place that contains a vibe that makes you happy and makes you feel inspired. So by bringing that to you, it allows you to really feel more motivated and inspired. And so basically, by doing these things, slowly, like little things, like starting to wear more heels that you like, or flat shoes, or whatever it is that's more you and that represents your fantasy, by little, doing it, and doing things like changing your wallpaper, painting your walls, buying that new furniture or that new teapot. Really, anything that represents that dream or that fantasy that you always try and push away because you feel that it's an escape and that you need to focus on where you are right now. By integrating that and slowly bringing it into your daily life, eventually you will start to realize that you really can achieve anything, and that you really can make your fantasy a reality in all different areas. So it's the smallest little step that's going to make a huge difference. And you won't necessarily see it right away, but over time you will. So yeah, thank you for watching. I really am happy to share this with all of you. And I wish you all the best on your endeavor to fulfill your fantasies. Thank you.